Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Paytech Show. We're going to be looking at how mobile money has made the entire East African region mobile. The creation of Empeza has opened up new ways to get around and see loved ones, move businesses around, and ultimately thrive in a new economy. In countries like Kenya and Tanzania, with huge economic, population, and infrastructural growth, we're starting to see people want to move about in agile ways that previously they wouldn't have been able to do in a cash-based society. To find out more about this topic, we headed to Nairobi, Kenya, to speak with Frank Molla, who is the Managing Director and Head of Sub-Saharan Africa over at BPC. Now, Frank, can you set the scene for us here? What were payments like in East Africa, particularly in Kenya, before mobile money came around?
Compared to before, I would have to get 1,000 or 2,000 shillings note, put in an envelope, address it to my mom, get out of the house, go to a certain bus station somewhere, give it to them, sign a paper, get that paper, tell her this is what is coming, I call her. She has to go to the bus stop. She has to wait for the envelope. She has to pick it up just to get 1,000 shillings. Now, all that was curtailed by simply me sitting down and saying, have you received? Like, yes, I've received. And she can do a lot of things with them. So for me, that was a turning point of realizing, wow, this is amazing. But with a disclaimer, this is for Kenya. It's working well. And from a transactions perspective, going to the bank, you had to walk into a bank. You know, literally you had to go where the bank is. Now today, the bank is going into people's homes. The bank is on your phone. You know, transactions are happening on your phone. I'm sure you've heard about Empeza. I'm sure you've seen the way we transact in Kenya is totally different with UK and other countries because Empeza controls close to, over 80% of transactions in Kenya. And one of the things I'll tell you is, if you go into any country, the mindset, the culture is very important for your payments and what you're planning to do to evolve. So we've seen that change. From paper, cash is still king, so to speak, but at least we are seeing some efforts, with mobile phones, and it's really amazing.
Now, I was lucky enough to take a trip to South Africa to speak with Diego Gutierrez, who's the Chief Officer for International Markets at Empeza. Now, for those who don't know, Empeza are the region's largest mobile money platform and fintech provider.
My name is Diego Gutierrez. I'm the Chief Officer for the International Business in Vodacom, which means that I run the countries outside of South Africa. I've been doing this job for the last 5 years, but I've been in Africa for the past 15. I've been lucky enough to live in several countries. So I love it here. I'm originally from South America.
Can you tell us a bit more about what Empeza is and how Vodacom has enabled its growth?
Absolutely. So Empeza is our mobile money service. It's the biggest fintech in Africa. We have approximately 50 million active customers using Empeza across our footprint. In Tanzania, Lesotho, DRC, Mozambique, and Ghana, it's managed by Vodacom. In Kenya, it's managed by Safaricom, but all of them run under the same technology, under the same platform. We have a network of 600,000 agents that are the ones that take money and disburse money, that are the key to our Empeza service. And we are basically growing every year at a very, very accelerated rate. Last year, we transacted $250 billion. That's the money that moved between wallets, and that amount is just growing and growing at gigantic steps.
That's absolutely fascinating. Now, for the people in these countries that are using Empeza, what does it mean for them?
Well, obviously, it's made a great change in their lives. It's allowed them to be part of the financial system, to be part of the banking system. Before Empeza arrived to these markets, only about 10 to 15% of the people were banked. today almost 60 to 70% of the people are inside the financial system. So it's massive, and these people can not only do payments, they can send peer-to-peer transactions to each other, they can pay for services, they can get loans, they can save money, they can have access to buying products through our network of merchants, which are the shops that take payments in Empeza. So Empeza has become the center of their lives.
We often say that money makes the world go round, but it's time to find out how your money enables you to get around the world. We're here in Nairobi, Kenya, finding out about how mobile money revolutionized the way that people could get around Kenya. With the pandemic, cash suddenly became a less ideal way of transacting. And so mobile money took over in these mutatus, highly colorful, privately owned public buses that blare disco music, gospel music, and enable people to get around in such a traffic-saturated city. We've got Leon here from LipaPay. So Leon, can you tell us a bit more about the mutatus and where you guys fit into that with BPC?
For the process, it's very simple for a customer to pay. Just dial *390#, then he enters the Matatu code. The Matatu codes are on the Matatu stickers. After that, he enters the amount you want to pay. And then from there, he waits for an Empeza push. He enters the PIN for Empeza. Then the transaction goes to the driver. The driver receives a message plus the amount that has been paid for the transport.
Now, what does that freedom of movement mean for everyone here in Nairobi to get around easier, get into the center of Nairobi very easily?
Most of them, they use the public transport. The Matatus, some use borders because of traffic. Others prefer to use their private, but their for private car is very minimal. Most of them prefer for the public transport.
So we're inside one of the mutatus now. Now you can see it's like a 50-inch TV screen blasting out DJ tunes. And as we go down the bus, you'll start seeing there's a TV there, speakers everywhere. It's absolutely mad. It's a way to get to work efficiently, easy, and a hell of a way to do it.
From here, each and every Matatu has its own music sound. So the music sound is played depending on time. During morning hours, because the Matatu, they have old ladies, old mamas, they usually play the gospel music. But during the day, they play the reggae music, they play the hip hop, they play the country music, they play the local music. And from our side, most of the Matatus, the youth, they are attracted to the sound of the music. So it's one of the factors that contributes to the Matatu being filled up very easily.
My name is Timothy Mwenda, fleet manager at K-Trans Limited. K-Trans is a transport offering services for transportation for passengers from Ngong to town.
I use Empeza most of the times. It's more easier because you don't need to carry a lot of cash. You don't need to be worried about losing cash. So I prefer it in the phone. Because
right now the world is digitizing. Right now we are in a Vision 2030, which by the end of like 4 or 5 years to come, everybody will be already in the digital platform. So I think it's fading, the cashless system. It's now a new route which we are trying to bring in the world.
So that's all we've got time for here today at the Mutatu station. It's been absolutely fascinating finding out about these really eclectic buses. I mean, they're loud, they're colourful, but more importantly, they're enabling Nairobians to get around easier and safer in a post-pandemic world. Mobile money has changed the way that people are operating here, and it's so exciting to see what they're going to do next here in Nairobi.
From a Kenyan perspective, from a global perspective, if you look at mobile money, it has changed lives. Huge. I just pick my phone now and I can send my mom money while we are talking. I can literally pick my phone and say, oh, you want some money? Let me send it through. But separate from that, there's a lot of things you can do from your phone. People can now bank from their phone. I can literally sit here. If I forget my wallet at home, I'm not worried. I don't need to go back at home to pick my wallet. Why? Because everything now is embedded on my phone. My bank is on the phone. The news is on the phone. Any update I want is on the phone. So from the comfort of where I am, life has been made simple and easier. And you see, for us now, usually as BPC, what happens is If Kenya, this is what is happening, then how can we be enablers to make sure that we are part of the ecosystem? You know, BPC means banking, payments, and commerce. And what purely that means is being in the payment space, we work with the likes of fintechs, governments, financial institutions, you know, the banks. But at the same time, we work with payment enablers because our work is to enable. The beauty of all that is we do all this because our end game is to have some impact into people's lives on how they bank, how they pay, and how they transact. And that's what we talked about, or we talk about, we like bridging digital into real life.
Now that you have effectively your bank in your own home, what does that mean for mobility? I mean, here we are right now in Nairobi, right by the United Nations, and the United Nations actually mentions that mobility is core for improving financial inclusion. As people can get around easier, their lives become easier. So how has mobile money enabled people to get around easier and ultimately improve their financial inclusion?
I mean, thanks, and it's a very valid question. So I'll take you one step back as far as mobility is concerned. And what I've seen is even globally, I'm yet to come across a country that mobility is not part of their top agenda or priority. Everybody wants that efficiency everywhere. And, you know, when we bring it closer to even sub-Saharan Africa, we are seeing a lot of countries coming up with all these infrastructure projects, superhighways, expressways, you know, you call it. It's because the moment infrastructure, the roads are opening up well, then the economies also start having a positive impact. Bring it closer home to Kenya, where I'm sure maybe when you're coming from the airport, you must have either experienced the expressway from top or you are driving down and you could see it from up, you know. And it just shows you where the thinking is. But now with mobile money and you just having everything on your phone, as BPC in Nairobi, we've empowered close to 10,000 matatus. Matatus are these very colorful minivans, nice music and
disco on wheels.
Yeah, disco on wheels, you can say that. And the beauty of that is the fact that we've been able to make the common, we call them wananchi in Swahili word. I can easily board a matatu today. I don't need to carry cash. I get inside, I get my seat. There's a till number, which the conductor will tell me, Frank, from this destination to this destination is this amount. I enter that and I'm done. And I comfortably sit. Now, before, what would happen is, first I have to make sure I have the exact amount, because from the destination, I'm starting my journey from the origin to the destination. There are many stops, and each stop has a different pricing. So if you go with 1,000 shillings note, then getting your change, if your trip is 100 shillings, becomes a problem. One of the challenges also would be when you're alighting at your next stop is, hey, Mr. Conductor, I'm getting off on the next stop. He's like, hey, I don't have change. I'm like, okay, so what do I do? It's not my problem. Then he says, who else is alighting here? Okay, can I give you guys this money so you go and look for change outside? Then you don't know this person. So security issues, time wastage, money gets lost even for the matatu operators, because even the owner of the matatus themselves, transportation, cannot really reconcile. But now with mobile, what you're seeing is even the owner of the minivan or the matatu, they can easily look at a statement and see how this has been reconciled. The person getting on board with the matatu also sits back and says, I'm paying 50 shillings. I'm certain I'll pay 50 shillings. I'll be comfortable. I will alight. So it has saved a lot of things, even in terms of the financial inclusion. Now, what has that done in return? You save a lot of time, peace of mind, and people become more vibrant, and everything you do in that day just connects very well.
How's Empeza, especially during the pandemic, enable people to move about safely and securely?
Yeah, well, so I think that all across our footprint, more and more transport solutions are connecting to us, right? Not only we have deals with governments where their public bus services are linked to Empeza, where you have even tap solutions where you can pay with Empeza, but there's also all these ride-hailing apps like, for example, Uber, but there are so many all across that are very localized, that all of them take payments in Empeza because it's much easier, right? There's not an exchange of cash. It's safe. You don't have to be handling cash. And the same applies to distribution fleets. FMCGs that have huge distribution fleets that move across the country, they're not carrying cash anymore. They distribute products and the shop owners pay them in Empeza.
For our audience who might not be aware, could you actually tell us a bit more about what O-City is?
Okay, so O-City is a fintech arm of BPC as far as transit is concerned, right? When you think of mobility, transportation and all that. And if I share with you some examples, when you think of O-City, think of railway lines, think of expressways like what we're talking about, think of parking slots, all these are examples of where O-City, plays a very key role. And the reason I say that is every fifth transaction that happens globally is an O-City transaction.
No way.
Yes, it's an O-City transaction. And this is across different regions, like I told you, here in Kenya, in Egypt, in Ivory Coast, all the way to Latin America, in Philippines. It's everywhere. We are close to, I think, now it's over 130 cities. And just changing lives as far as transportation is concerned. So really, really excited. And like I said, there is so much more that our city can do. And the reason why we have all those options, be it using your mobile, be it QR, be it contactless, be it NFC tap and go, you name it. We have the capability. But now what you need to do in terms of global is to appreciate as you go to each country and adapt to what is relevant in that country. But all the functionalities, all the capabilities are there. For us to do every fifth transaction in the world being an O-City transaction, it tells you we are very busy in this industry.
So what is next for you, Empeza and Vodacom?
Well, look, I think, as I said, we're just scratching the surface. This is the tip of the iceberg. I think that payments and financial services through solutions like our super app and Empeza are going to be the drivers of growth in the continent for the next decade. So our job here is to continue to innovate, to continue to enlarge the ecosystem of customers, of merchants, of agents, of third-party solutions that embed into our app. So we think that everything is going to be integrated into our super app. Telcos are going to become banks, banks are going to become telcos, and it's going to be one happy family. And we see ourselves as the center of this journey and innovation.
Now that's all we've got time for on today's episode of the Paytech Show. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. For me, it was absolutely fascinating to find out how payments have jumped out of the scene and really transformed the way that banking and finance is actually starting to provide real humanist stories for people around the world. I'd like to say a massive thank you to BPC O-City and also Empeza for enlightening us and showing you, our viewers, and myself, how they're working from a clean slate to enable millions of people to get around in more efficient ways than we're seeing in traditional markets like Europe and North America. So stay tuned for the rest of this series of the Paytech Show. We've got a lot more coming, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself. From me, Doug McKenzie at the FF News Studio, hope you have a lovely day, and goodbye.